Hi, welcome to my session, Long Distance Lessons, What I've Learned from Managing Remote Teams. Managing remote teams requires a new set of skills for leaders, especially during times of rapid change and uncertainty. In order to step up and provide emotional and professional support that your team requires, it's best to first understand the different types of challenges your team faces. Then address those challenges to create a healthy and productive working environment that can evolve over time as your team's needs change. Hi, I'm Sarah Fruy, the VP of Marketing at Linqia. Calm the chaotic sea of influencer marketing. We're a tech-enabled platform with managed services that handles influencer marketing campaigns for the world's leading brands, from influencer selection to creative strategy to scale. Prior to joining Linqia, I served in a number of marketing-related leadership roles at Pantheon, during which time we rose to unicorn status. This also gave me a lot of experience managing remote teams as I was there during the entire early days of the pandemic. I'm a Scrum Master and Certified Agile Marketer with over 15 years of experience, as well as marketing certifications from the Cornell Johnson School of Management. Previously, I worked at emerging media companies like Say Media, as well as heritage brands like the San Francisco Chronicle. I'm a guest contributor on many popular websites, as well as a frequent public speaker. You can follow me on Twitter at Sarah Fruy or find me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to connect with you. So let's dig in. First, I want to talk about understanding challenges of working from home. There's a lot of common struggles for remote workers, but most notably are things like technology issues, frequent distractions. People are dealing with family members, roommates, pets, lawn care companies, construction workers, you name it. There's any number of things that can pop up throughout the day that will pull someone away from their work and their computer. Isolation is also something that a lot of folks are struggling with. While there are many people who are introverts who are thriving in a work from home situation, there are a lot of others who still struggle to adapt to this space and deal with a lot of depression and anxiety over not being around a lot of people. And that's something that you need to be sensitive to. And then burnout, even though we've been in this, I think we're in an endemic stage right now, the immediate fears and things like that have dissipated. There's still a lot of folks that are struggling with work-life balance, when to turn off, when to unplug, and how to do that. And so knowing that your team members are dealing with a lot of different situations at home as they're working remotely is an important kind of place to start from when it comes to having empathy for their situation and being a better leader in the future. So, one of the things I always recommend is building a diverse team. You really want to include different individuals from different genders, ethnic backgrounds, social communities, age groups, and embrace diversity and encourage shared perspectives among those people. You really want everyone to feel like they have a voice and that they're heard. And if you find that certain people are dominating the conversation, one thing that I've found to be really helpful is, during your one-on-ones, if there's an important topic that you want everyone to get feedback on, have a conversation with some of the quieter folks beforehand to understand their opinions and help them voice them in the meeting. It's also important to take time to understand what motivates and distracts different team members. You want to avoid a one-size-fits-all approach to management. Your team management approach should be as unique as the individuals that you're managing. One of the things that you can do is leverage one-on-ones to provide critical feedback and deliver praise in a public setting. I think this is really important. You don't want people to feel attacked when they're around their colleagues. They're not going to respond well to that. So making sure that you have permission to give them critical feedback, that you're in a safe space, and that they're open to that feedback. Because if they're not, then schedule some time for later in the week and have that conversation. But public praise is great. Everybody wants to feel complimented. They want to feel like they're appreciated, and doing that in a public setting can go really far with a group, whether that's on a call, in a group chat, over an email. There's a lot of opportunities for you to provide praise for your teammates when they've done a great job. You can also leverage things like personality tests, understanding different learning styles, conducting team bonding activities. A lot of these things can be sponsored by your company. They'll provide money and resources to facilitate these kinds of things. And leveraging tools like this can really help you understand like individual and team dynamics to help people work better together, and for you as a manager to understand different needs of the different team members. And I had a lot of folks who worked in different time zones in different countries, different life situations. And I think the main thing here is establishing trust with folks. If they do what they say they're going to do, then you can continue to give them autonomy. But if they're failing to meet deadlines, if they're not meeting your expectations around things that you have agreed upon, that's when you have to start to kind of, get more nitpicky, increase communication, and sometimes have to micromanage a bit if people aren't able to handle the responsibility of working independently from home. One of the ways that you can kind of help them in this situation is to encourage them to minimize distractions. One of the things that I do that works really well for me is I will create a window of browser tabs with personal things like my email and whatnot. And then I minimize that during the day. If I only have work tabs up during the day when I'm focused on work, and then that personal stuff is down at the bottom, I can check it on my lunch break or, when I need a little bit of downtime or something like that. I also silence all of my alerts, my text messages, my chats, my email alerts on my computer for the first 3 hours of the day. And this really helps me focus in on the meetings that I'm having, because I'm generally very meeting heavy in the morning, again, dealing with different time zones and things like that. I want to be present when I'm on a call with people. And that's one of the things that's really helped me, and I encourage my teammates to do as well. And then respect boundaries. If people have time blocked off on their calendars, honor that time. I think having transparency as a leader is a way that you can establish kind of a code of conduct around this. Next up, I would say over communicate. As you're learning to communicate better, over communicate. I think with managing remote teams, because you're not in the office, you're not sitting at tables together and having all these meetings in person all of the time, that having a quick check-in every day is not unreasonable, especially if you can do it in like 15 minutes, sort of stand-up style, to make sure that you can identify issues early on. If you can't do daily stand-ups, then I think meeting twice a week is pretty reasonable for remote teams. But meeting more than once a week, I think is really best practice when you're managing remote teams, because folks aren't together and can't kind of collaborate in real time. Have agenda for meetings. This is especially important when you're meeting with new working groups or kicking off new projects, so that people understand what you're going to be talking about and ideally their role in that conversation. If there's a pre-read, making sure people have time to actually read that ahead of the meeting, give people the opportunity to prepare. And then also send recap emails if you had a deck that you were showing, if there were agenda items that you agreed to, planning things like that. Make sure that you recap the emails so everyone's on the same page and you have clear next steps in terms of what the program or project requires. I also think it's important to create separate shared spaces for your group to communicate, and then for your group to communicate with the company. Having a team chat that, say like marketing that's open to the whole company, that's good for people to provide feedback for you and to give you inputs and call things out when they need help with something. But you also need a place just for your team to communicate amongst themselves, that they feel like they can be a little bit more free and talk about things. And so, having different types of spaces for different types of conversations, I think, is a really helpful way to improve communication when you're dealing with remote teams. Also, creating guidelines for how your team members communicate and methods for flagging time-sensitive issues is really important. Next, I would recommend finding the right project management tools. My favorite project management tool for the past few years has been Asana. One of the ways I leverage Asana is they have these project management boards. And so I will set milestones for a project that are bigger. Then within the milestones, I'll create themes of deliverables that we need to accomplish. And within those deliverables, then I'll have individual tasks. So I think a really effective way of managing remote teams is taking a big project, a big idea, and then just breaking it down. So you get to that individual level of the things that certain folks are responsible for, so they know exactly what their role is in the project. And then it's kind of twofold. A, for managers and executives, they can see this bird's eye view of the project of like, oh, we're accomplishing this, this, and this, and these are the dates that it's going to be done. And then at the individual level, I know that I, Sarah, am responsible for this part of the project on this day. Here's all of the requirements in one space. And so it keeps everybody organized. Another thing that I use the boards for is work in progress, or WIP boards. And so as a manager, I can go in and see where are the tasks on this board, so I know where my team is in the process, and I can identify blockers. Again, it's another opportunity. If we had a stand up earlier and all of a sudden there's a blocker and someone to get a hold of me, I can see that it's in the blocked column, or it's a reminder to me that I need to help them with that or something. But it's a great way for folks, especially when you're working in different time zones, to stay on the same pace in terms of where we're at with individual tasks. And then I encourage people to kind of streamline communication within those tasks. So have all of your documentation, imagery, assets related to the task. If I'm chatting with somebody, I try and keep the conversation in the task. If not, I might recap a conversation from instant messenger. So that's documented within there, so that, again, if someone else on the team, someone at a management level needs to check in and understand, I can just shoot them a task and be like, here's all the communication related to it, here's all the deliverables, all the documentation, just in one place, and it keeps everybody really organized. So having frequent updates on progress is really important when dealing with remote folks. Next up, setting clear goals. As you work on projects with folks, it's important to establish your why. You really need people to be invested in this emotionally, so they understand their role. Why are you asking me to do this? What's the point of this? How does it contribute to the greater good? And I think that's important for everybody at all levels, to understand the why of what you're doing. And then also focusing on a North Star. You can have, again, milestones and different objectives that roll up into a larger project, but having a clear North Star metric that you're willing to align on as a team is really important in terms of establishing consistency, making decisions, and helping to prioritize work. Occasionally, you're going to get a great idea of something that someone's going to come up with. And hey, what if we did this? Or can we add this on? That changes the scope. And all of a sudden, you have to look back at your North Star metric. Is this aligning with it? No, then maybe you have to deprioritize something that is a good idea. Or if it is really important, okay, we're going to take this on, but something else has to give. Again, so key takeaways from managing remote teams are, understand the challenges of working from home, be empathetic to different situations. Life is hard, life is challenging. You want people to enjoy their work. And so really trying to understand what they're working through is going to help you cater your management style to that specific individual. And then, create a working environment that's diverse, inclusive, and empathetic so that people feel heard, they feel respected, and they feel appreciated as they're doing their work to help them stay motivated and focused. As you learn to communicate better, over-communicate, I can't stress this enough, how important communication is when you're dealing with remote teams, but, check in frequently, find ways to streamline communication so everybody knows to go to a certain area to have conversations and to document things and be really clear on the guidelines so that everyone is communicating the same way and at the same levels. Plan and prioritize work in a consistent manner. So when you're creating things like Asana projects or whatever your project management tool is, or guidelines for meetings, be consistent in terms of how you're approaching these things so that your team has a sense of stability as times are chaotic and changing around them. And then last but not least, one of the things I think that you should all take home with you is try to create opportunities to meet in person. We, as remote leaders, can do the virtual happy hours and coffees and team bonding and escape rooms and all of that. And like the studies show that they are helpful. They can feel a little bit forced sometimes and a little bit cliche or tired. There is, Zoom fatigue is very real too. I know I've personally suffered from it, but I think that at the end of the day, there's really nothing that can replace in-person connections. And so fight for the budget, try to get trips planned where you can meet with your teammates in real life, because there's something really magical that happens when people are together in person that you can't replicate over a screen. Again, I'm Sarah Fruy. Feel free to follow up with me if you have any questions or you want to chat about things that have worked for you with managing remote teams. If you're just getting started, you've been doing this for a long time, I'd love to know what's working and what's not. And I have a related blog post that you can check out on the GitKon site. So thank you and have a great day.